Hello friends and welcome to patch 7.31c highlights video. Day late because I was traveling, my bad guys. But here we are, let's talk about it. There's honestly not too much, I think. Not because there wasn't a significant nerf to some heroes, and I think there will lead to a change because of it, but it's just not clear to me what that change will be. So I'll explain that as we get into it. Item changes, nothing major here. Some slight buffs, slight nerfs to some of the more popular or unpopular items. By the way, Eye of Scotty, this is a bit of a typo. So if you're reading this and you think, oh, Eye of Scotty is way better than I thought, this is not actually a percentage change. So it's not a percentage of attack speed slow. That would actually be absurd. I think that'd be really good. This is supposed to be flat. So like 20% movement speed slow, that is a percentage. And then 30 flat attack speed slow. So like half a hyperstone. So not nearly as exciting as 30%. I think that would be a really significant change to Eye of Scotty, but this should just be relatively minor. What interests me is the Wraith pack change, which Vlad's got cheaper, so it's easier to build the component. And then I think this is probably an oversight that Vlad's is a 1200 aura, and then when it built into Wraith pack, it went down to 900, so that was probably just a mistake. But it's getting a bunch of slight buffs, and I feel like this could be good, but I'm just not sure who builds it, because for a support, like Vlad's doesn't make much sense as a first item, since lifesteal and bonus damage aren't that significant to them, but it's good for teams. So if you're like playing a lot with your team, it can be pretty good, but you can't need any other item, right? Because like, oh, I need stats. Vlad's not going to help you with that, so you got to buy other things. The Wraith Pact is a little expensive. So like now it has some stats like the health and the mana, and then like, oh, this aura that'll help my team, this active. And I think the active and the aura sound good, but it's just kind of awkward. You know, what if I need like Glimmer, Force, all the usual support stuff? Should the cores buy it? The stats aren't that good. So it feels a little awkward. But I'm just gonna buy it next time I stream and I play Dota. I'm just gonna start buying Wraith Pact, whether it's good or not. We're just gonna test it, and I'll let you guys know after that. Neutral creep changes. This is good. This is necessary in my opinion. I don't know if it affects you guys all that much because Chen and Enchanters aren't very common in pubs, but this Harpy Scout vision was pretty absurd. I had a couple games with it where Chen was literally just using Harpy Scouts in the late game because it was so good just to have like full vision of the map. So nerfed. And the Dark Troll Summoner, the important thing here is that on the previous numbers, you could have up to 3 sets of skeletons, and that goes from 6 skeletons, providing a bonus 18 damage, to 9 skeletons for 4 seconds, which provide a total of 27 damage to each skeleton. So for 4 seconds, if each skeleton attacks once per second, so like 4 attacks, that is nearly 1,000 damage, not even counting like any of their normal damages and stuff like that. And then all the allied creeps that might be nearby, the heroes, all that stuff. So I think that 4 seconds was the absurd part that really let you like run down towers. Now you'll only be able to have 2 sets of skeletons, and I think that's much more reasonable. For hero changes, the general trend here is that late game heroes, which were really unfavored, mostly got slight buffs. And a lot of the stronger early game heroes got slight nerfs, except for a couple of the really big heroes, they got much bigger nerfs. So those are the ones we'll highlight, but just an example, you know, like Arc Warden getting a buff, Bane getting a nerf. That's kind of the trend for a lot of these. I won't read through them. Chaos Knight, he came back. I actually misread this. So he will still do bonus damage to creeps, but not creep heroes and Roshan. So I think this is a fine change. I was worried that they killed Chaos Knight because I don't think he's that popular. He finally came back for a bit, and it's like, oh, he's gone. But no, it still works on creeps, so I think he should still be okay. Maybe not as strong as he was before, but I still think this will be fine. There's only like a few cases of creep heroes anyways, and then yeah, Roshan won't be as easy, but like he'll still be able to do it, just a little slower. Chen, there's like 5 Chen players here, so let's just skip him, but it is a slight buff. It's actually a pretty decent buff, I feel like. Extra move speed and the Hand of God cooldown. It's not, I don't know. It's good, right? But all 5 of you, I'm sure you're happy for it. Crystal Maiden, I think this is a nice change. The ult cooldown especially is big. 20 seconds on that, level 1. Once you take that point, whether it's level 6 or a little later, I think that'll be really nice. Death Prophet. This is a big one. So, the main change here is that to me, the Exorcism no longer does the bonus damage to buildings. I think it's back to what it used to do before the last patch, before she became super popular. And then the Spirit Siphon's a bit worse as well. But to me, Death Prophet was really annoying because core or support, who knows, provided like decent utility, strong lane, and then a lot of tempo with exorcism. I was terrible at Death Prophet support, but good Death Prophets were being very annoying with this. And that kind of sped the game up, right? If you can't keep up with Death Prophet core, Death Prophet support, you're donezo, because you're gonna lose all your towers. She's gonna beat you in the lane, and then how are you gonna play Dota? So a lot of like slower heroes or anyone bad against Death Prophet, for example, Crystal Maiden with a channeled ult, they just weren't doing well because Death Prophet was so prevalent. So anytime you kill some of these like really big heroes, I think it does shift the meta, but in non-obvious ways. Because I honestly don't know, like Crystal Maiden or a couple of other supports, like who's the best among them now that Death Prophet's gone? I don't know. So we'll see that play out in a bit as the patch changes or develops from here. So some other like slight nerfs to most of these. Enchantress, I kind of like this change. Kind of sad as well. There'll still be some like random chance when you can take really good creeps that spawn near you, but it should also make Enchantress less annoying, because I feel that Enchantress is very draft dependent, and like in theory it's supposed to be very strong early game support, and then you drop off, right? That's the usual power trend. But for Enchantress it was like, you're strong in the early game, but I'll kill you later, right? And it's like, no, I'm actually just gonna buy a hood, and then my passive will mean that right clicks don't really work on me, so you can't really kill me. And then you're like, so you're a tank, right? And it's not that bad. It's like, no, actually I have a 0 cooldown pure damage attack modifier, and I scale as a core. It's like, so she just felt really good like throughout the entire game, as long as a good Enchantress game. And if it was a bad Enchantress game, it was a bad Enchantress game. But lately she's been too good, I feel, so I kind of like this nerf. Other small things, like Huskar, another early tempo hero. Coddle getting nerfed as well. He amplifies any early game strat. He's good at it himself, and then he just makes people better at it with chakra magic. He buffs up his allies. Who else? Actually, I think Lycan actually buffed. So he's another early game hero, but that's fine. He's kind of dead for a while. Actually, he was very alive for a while, so I was happy he was dead. But no, he should be back a little bit. Medusa, funny enough, Medusa's a late game hero, but she doesn't feel that bad in the early game. So she's been kind of an enigma this last like year or two, I feel like, where you think of her as this late game hero, but she's been doing pretty decent in the early to mid game. And so I think it's been tough to get rid of her. Like, where do you nerf her? I don't know. But apparently it's through Split Shot and Stone Gaze, and hopefully that does make her a bit worse of a hero, because I'm kind of bored of her. Necrophos, another good early hero lately, nerfs. Nyx, slight buff. Omni-Knight, slight nerf to him, but it deserved, I'll admit. Primal Beast, I think, hit harder than necessary. In my opinion, I think he only needed like either a trample change or an uproar change. I don't blame the onslaught sound through Fog of War. I think that's fair. But I think all of these combined at once is a little extreme. So I think Primal Beast seems like kind of bad now. I think they're actually going to have to buff him again to get him to be decent, because he lost like 100 damage on trample and it scales worse. And then uproar also lost a lot. But maybe it'll be fine. Maybe it's just an overreaction. But I honestly think just like one or two of these changes would have been enough instead of like this whole onslaught. Pugna, another very early game-centric hero, very annoying. A lot of supports were killing themselves on Nether Ward, and so you just couldn't play those heroes. For example, Crystal Maiden, I've been using her a couple times, but how does she keep up with Pugna? She just gets outranged, outsped in the laning stage. All her spells kill her on Nether Ward. She has no way to cancel like the Pugna ult, so it was very irritating for any of these high mana cost supports. And now that Pugna is a bit worse, they should come back in a little bit. Sand King, very popular lately, nerfed a little bit. Slark, I actually think of him as like a mid to late game hero, slight buff. Spectre, a late game hero, buffed. Storm, nerfed. I didn't even realize Storm was like too good. I haven't been keeping up with Pro Dota maybe. Sven was pretty bad, buffed. TA, slight nerf. Timber, slight nerf. Tinker's buffed, I guess, whatever. Tiny nerf, this was necessary, right? You guys probably saw a lot of Tiny in your game. I saw a lot of Tiny in my games, so buy Tiny. I think that's the last like major one. Undying's pretty good, but I think this is still like a workable change. Some buffs to these guys. This Witch Doctor Maldic buff seems pretty good, from 7 to 12 DPS at the first level. That's like almost double the value, level 1. So I think now if you Maledict, it already does like 100 damage on its own. That's pretty respectable. Granted, it's like a 30-second cooldown. But now you like auto attack once or twice and that damage scales up. Like, Maledict looking pretty good level 1. I think we'll see that experimented with. And then Zeus, lots of little buffs here as well. So probably see some Zeus games as well. Now that he won't get run down by some of these like super powered mid heroes that were just crushing it in the mid lane. So yeah, I think the strongest heroes, and actually, here is some data from Dota Buff trend page. I know this is not the end all be all of information, but I want to show you here the lowest page of the biggest losers of the patch, kind of, and this is what is a bit expected. This is what I think will open up the patch a bit. Even though we didn't see like major buffs to a given hero, just small buffs mostly, I think like Death Prophet and Pugna especially are very defining if they are in most games. Actually, this pick rate maybe doesn't reflect that in the general pubs, but especially at the higher ranked games, these were very common heroes, and you just had to be able to deal with them, or else you just felt really bad. And so even if certain like other heroes were not strictly bad, if they were bad against Pugna and Death Prophet, you wouldn't see them as often. That's just kind of how the meta goes. So now these two heroes are out, I think it opens up more options to play other heroes, even though they weren't specifically buffed. Just these guys are now out. In the same way, Sand King, Tiny, Primal Beast, like they're all very good against certain types of heroes. And so if you don't have to pick to always punish Tinies or like not be killed by Primal Beasts, you get to play other heroes. And so I don't know who is going to be the new number ones in the game, but I do think we'll start to see some other heroes rather than those heroes that we just scrolled away from. So I myself am pretty interested in trying out Crystal Maiden. I think she benefited a lot from some of those heroes disappearing, and I think she still fits the overall meta right now, which even though I'm saying like all those heroes shifted, I do think we're still in a relatively like early game focused, like high fighting kind of lineups. I'm not quite sold on ultra late passive heroes, even though heroes like Spectre and Warlock are going up. I don't know. They're always kind of good in pubs, but you'll notice also their pick rates aren't terribly high. So I don't know if it's like the most reflective. But I'm not sold on that still. Like, I don't think we're all going to be like ratting and, you know, defending our towers to the death, waiting till like 60 minutes. I do think it'll still be like fairly early focused. So I'm still leaning towards heroes like that, like Crystal Maiden, maybe Witch Doctor, maybe something weird like Sven support, any kind of hero who's like good in the early game. And I will be trying Wraith Pact as well, which I don't know if is any good or not, but I'm going to give it a shot on like Marcy, maybe Dawnbreaker, and I'll see how it goes. I'll let you guys know, or you guys let me know. That's about it, I think, for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.